The wooden hull of the Endeavour creaked as it cut through the warm South Pacific waters in the 1770s. Captain James Cook's crew, weary from months at sea, hauled in their nets and found a peculiar catch, a silvery fish with dark stripes running along its body. The cook prepared it that evening, and the hungry sailors ate without suspicion. Hours later, the first man awoke screaming. He clawed at his own skin, convinced hot sand was searing his flesh. Others soon stumbled from their hammocks, their eyes wide with terror as vivid nightmares bled into the waking world. They described monstrous shapes in the shadows and a relentless phantom burning that no water could soothe. The ship's surgeon recorded the symptoms with a trembling hand: violent dreams, tactile hallucinations, and profound disorientation. The culprit was later identified as the Salema porgy, a common reef fish. Unknowingly, the crew had consumed a marine toxin that hijacked their nervous systems, turning a simple meal into a waking nightmare on the open ocean. As Cook's reports drifted back to Europe, naturalists in musty museums began connecting the dots. They pulled preserved specimens from glass jars filled with yellowing alcohol, silver-striped fish with the scientific name Sarpa salpa floating in formaldehyde. These ichthyologists meticulously recorded each detail: the herbivore's flat teeth for grazing algae, its coastal habitat, and every sailor's account of waking nightmares. The preserved fish told only half the story. Researchers noticed a pattern in the poisoning reports. They clustered in spring and early summer. That timing pointed away from the fish itself and towards something in its environment. The Sarpa salpa was merely a collector, grazing on whatever grew along Mediterranean rocks and seagrass beds as the seasons changed. By the late 19th century, the mystery had crystallized into a clear seasonal warning. Fishermen along the Italian and French coasts knew to avoid certain silver-striped fish when the water turned a peculiar green. They called it the madness of the sea, a poison that came not from the fish, but from something blooming invisibly in the warm spring currents. But before we continue, you need to know that YouTube suddenly decided our videos are no longer eligible to receive a share of advertising revenue. In other words, the channel continues generating advertising income for YouTube, but none of it supports the production of the documentaries themselves. Without another way to fund the channel, continuing to produce videos would simply become impossible. So instead of stopping the channel we love, and that many of you say you love watching, we created our own application to become the new source of funding for our documentaries. You can take a photo of any plant to instantly identify whether it is toxic, but also explore the interactive map showing poisonous plants reported around you, and receive alerts if you approach a toxic plant. If you enjoy gardening or walking in nature, we truly hope the app will be useful to you. Subscribing to it helps fund the production of this channel and allows us to continue making these videos. Thank you very much for your support. And now, let's return to our story. Those preserved fish in European museums weren't just curiosities. By the early 20th century, the same symptoms that struck Cook's sailors began appearing along Mediterranean coasts. In small ports from Sicily to the French Riviera, local fishermen developed a strict seasonal rule. They would pull their nets from the water, their catch glistening, and immediately sort through it with practiced hands. Any silver-striped Sarpa salpa was tossed back overboard without hesitation. The men knew these fish became dangerous only during the spring, when the warm coastal waters would suddenly turn a thick, murky green. This was the sign of a bloom, a massive explosion of microscopic algae that painted the sea for miles. The fish grazing on the seabed would consume vast quantities of it. The poison from the algae accumulated in the fish's liver and flesh. A fisherman who ignored the old warning and ate one during a bloom would, within hours, feel the world tilt. His skin might crawl with invisible insects. Solid walls would appear to breathe. This was not superstition, but a hard-won, practical knowledge passed down through generations who had witnessed the sea's brief, toxic transformation. While Mediterranean fishermen had long avoided certain fish during spring blooms, Japanese scientists in the 1960s sought the poison's physical form. At a marine laboratory, researchers dissected the liver from a reef-dwelling fish, carefully processing the tissue until they obtained a pale, crystalline powder, the first tangible evidence of the hallucinogenic substance. They dissolved the powder and injected it into laboratory mice. Within minutes, the animal's behavior transformed. Instead of normal exploration, the mice began scratching frantically at their own skin, as if trying to remove an invisible irritant. Their movements became jerky and disoriented. They stumbled in circles, unable to navigate their familiar enclosures. The scientists observed these symptoms with intense focus. The mice's distress mirrored the human reports of burning skin and confusion. This was no longer just folklore from sailors or fishermen's warnings. Here was a purified toxin, isolated in a lab, producing measurable neurological chaos in a living creature. The mystery now had a chemical fingerprint. Back in the laboratory, the pale powder extracted from fish livers finally yielded its secret. When researchers placed a tiny sample onto chromatography paper and let solvents creep upward, distinct bands separated. One of them glowed under ultraviolet light. This was the signature of a compound that, when analyzed, revealed a molecular structure hauntingly similar to lysergic acid diethylamide, the powerful hallucinogen known as LSD. The question then shifted. Where did this marine LSD originate? Scientists returned to the green coastal blooms. They filtered seawater thick with algae, processed the plankton, and ran the same chromatographic test. An identical glowing band appeared on the paper. The toxin was not made by the fish at all. It was manufactured by microscopic dinoflagellates, absorbed as the fish grazed on the algal soup. The pathway was now clear. The poison travelled from the plankton bloom into the fish's gut, where it resisted digestion and accumulated in the liver and flesh. A herbivorous fish, like the Sarpa salpa, had become, unwittingly, a toxic delivery system. The ocean's chemistry could now lace a simple meal with a compound potent enough to dismantle human perception. The trail of the hallucinogenic fish crossed the Pacific and washed ashore in California during the 1980s. There, a group of surfers caught and grilled what they thought was a common perch from the warm coastal waters. Within hours, one of the men found himself in a hospital bed, his heart hammering against his ribs as doctors attached electrodes to his chest. The medical team watched the jagged lines spike across the electrocardiogram monitor, tracking the dangerous tachycardia gripping his body. But the surfer's reality had already fractured. He stared at the sterile white walls of his room, where brightly coloured cartoon characters began to dance and shimmer, a vivid, unending parade that felt utterly real to him. For 36 straight hours, the hallucinations persisted without relief, a waking dream state completely detached from the clinical beeps of the hospital machinery. The case, meticulously documented by physicians, provided a stark modern record. The same ancient marine toxin, likely ingested by the fish during an algal bloom, could hijack the human mind with terrifying, prolonged clarity. The man who saw cartoon characters on his hospital wall was just one piece of the puzzle. To understand how the poison travelled from ocean to plate, researchers needed to trace its origin. Modern marine biologists launched sleek, torpedo-shaped drones into coastal waters, their cameras scanning for the telltale green haze of an algal bloom. The drones mapped the blooms in 3 dimensions, revealing toxic clouds drifting with the currents. From a research vessel, scientists lowered sterile glass bottles into the coloured water. They sealed samples at precise depths, capturing the microscopic dinoflagellates responsible for producing the toxin. Back in the lab, under powerful microscopes, the single-celled algae revealed their whip-like tails spinning through the water. These were the poison's true source, manufacturing the hallucinogenic compound as a defense when water temperatures and nutrients aligned perfectly. The final link was the fish. Schools of silver-striped Salama porgy, grazing peacefully on seagrass, inadvertently swallowed thousands of the toxic algae with every mouthful. The compound, resistant to digestion, accumulated in their liver and flesh. It was a silent, efficient transfer, from the drifting algal cell to the grazing herbivore fish, and ultimately to the human brain. The drone's map now showed a complete chilling pathway for the ocean's strangest poison. The underwater drones and water samples had mapped the toxin's journey from algae to fish. Now, that knowledge reached the people most at risk. In fishing villages across the Caribbean, public health workers began tacking colourful posters to the walls of bustling coastal markets. The illustrations were simple and clear. A plump, silvery fish with distinctive markings, the chub. The posters warned in bold letters against eating that specific fish during certain warm months. Fishermen, sorting their morning catch on ice, would point to the image and shake their heads, advising tourists. The message was a direct result of decades of science. When the water warmed and specific plankton bloomed, the grazing chub could become toxic. This seasonal advisory transformed ancient anecdotal fear into a modern, preventable public health measure. The fish itself was not inherently poisonous, it was merely a temporary carrier. The warnings aimed to break the chain at its final link, the dinner plate, protecting people from the vivid hallucinations and neurological chaos that had baffled sailors and scientists for centuries. Those seasonal warnings and scientific tracking all pointed back to the source, a creature oblivious to its own dangerous reputation. The Salama porgy, Sarpa salpa, continued its ancient rhythm in the dim light near the seabed. Its silver-striped body moved in synchronized schools, grazing peacefully on the algae that carpeted rocks and seagrass, a simple herbivore in a complex chemical world. The fish itself remained unchanged, a perfect biological vessel. It absorbed the potent neurotoxins from specific dinoflagellates during algal blooms, storing the compounds in its flesh and organs without any ill effect. Its own biology was neutral, a passive filter in the ocean's food web, yet it became a temporary reservoir for a poison powerful enough to warp human perception. This paradox made it one of the sea's most enduring mysteries. The porgy swam on, its existence a quiet testament to nature's unpredictable alchemy, where a harmless grazer could become, through mere diet, a conduit for vivid hallucinations. The poison was never its own, merely a passenger, leaving the fish untouched, while rewriting reality for anyone who consumed it at the wrong time.